What's been some of the most difficult moments in your journey, and what did you learn from them?
That's the best question ever. To be honest, I remember opening my business, and again, I took some criticism saying, like, this is not scalable, it's not this, it's not that. It costs a lot more money than I ever anticipated, and it takes a lot more time. Yeah, I sunk 30 or 50 or whatever, tens of thousands of dollars into this thing that didn't work. And I have a business degree, so it's not like I didn't know how to do a business plan. I think it was just kind of the actual practical realities of what it looks like surprised me.
So there's a disconnect between the theory and the practical.
Yes, that's a lovely way to put it. Yes.
Hello and welcome back to Storefront Strategies. I am delighted today to be joined by Janis Isaman all the way from Canada. And I think you're the first person from Canada that we've actually had on the show.
That's really fun.
It's good, isn't it? It's really interesting because we have all the different cultures and accents and time zones. Oh boy, are they fun.
It's true. Yes, the time zoning is always really fun.
Definitely. So can you tell us a little bit about yourself and My Body Couture?
Yes, so I'm a very small business owner, and I run a business that's called My Body Couture. And within that, I'm providing both service and selling product. I have a really compact little space. It's about 631 square feet, according to my lease, where I have storage for product sales. And then I also have areas for customers. There's a reception area, and then there's an area where we do actual work together, where we're providing services and etc. So it's a lovely little commercial space. This would be a difference between Europe and Canada, but I am in a historic building, which in Canadian terms is like from 1908 to 1911. That's about as old as they get, but it gives a lovely kind of warm feeling with the bricks and the kind of historical designation. So that's what I'm working with in terms of my commercial space.
I think it's quite interesting you say that about history, because my building is from around 1800 and was originally two cottages in the middle of a town. So
super cool.
In Elgin is a very, very old area that dates back to, I think, about 1300. Originally had a castle in the middle of the town as well. But yes, it's just interesting. The levels of history is fascinating.
From a commercial space standpoint, it does give a different feeling to the business, and it gives customers a different feeling. And a lot of my customers will actually comment on it because it gives that warmth and that sense of connection to the past, even though the thing I'm selling is quite modern in every tone and tenor.
What inspired you to start a wellness and fitness studio as a brick-and-mortar business?
That's a really great question, because there are a lot of different ways that this is all delivered now, including completely digitally. I really like connecting with customers. And for me, part of wellness is the idea that it can be anywhere that we are, including our home. And so actually I designed a space that looks more like a home. The building actually used to be, as you had just described, it actually used to be apartment buildings. So it does have that very homey quality to it. And for me, I did actually want a personal separation between my personal life and my personal space and my commercial/business life and business space. And so although as an entrepreneur, sometimes those blend and flow and mesh and and collide into each other more than this is my work life, this is my personal life. I did really want that for myself, but I also wanted that place for clients to really know that this is a professional service. These are professional products. This is not a homespun kind of operation. It's not something that's temporary. And so I guess in certain ways, I didn't think a ton about it because it was just the obvious step for me. But there also were a lot of ideas and reasons in the back of my head why I did that, because it obviously costs a lot more to have a commercial space than to run it in my basement, for example.
What were some of the biggest challenges that you faced when you first opened?
I think many business owners can relate to this one, but it costs a lot more money than I ever anticipated, and it takes a lot more time. And so a lot of those costs are things like, as soon as you have a commercial space, at least in Canada, you pay business banking fees, and you pay business internet fees, and you pay business level fees for things where they are substantially more. And then having a second space, I think this would be true even if it was a vacation home, you just have all this extra square footage to manage. So there's cleaning and there's decorating, and it costs a lot more money to decorate the space than what I thought. So it felt like for years, because it really was, it was like, oh, here's a little bit of extra money, let's install a sign. Here's some extra money, let's add a chair to the waiting room. Some extra money, let's give the space a little bit more warmth or a little bit more decor. So because I had actually done all the things that I do prior to having a commercial space, I thought I knew what I was getting into, but all of a sudden I was like, oh, wow, this is a lot more time, money, and management than I really ever kind of planned or budgeted for. I have a business degree, so it's not like I didn't know how to do a business plan. I think it was just kind of the actual practical realities of what it looks like surprised me.
So there's a disconnect between the theory and the practical.
Yes, that's a lovely way to put it. Yes.
And it sometimes comes as a bit of a shock.
Yeah, I mean, saying all of that, I would open the space again. I've had it for a while. I'm not closing it. And if I ever was going to, we had a moment in 2020/2021 where I would have taken that exit point if I was going to. So, saying, oh, it costs more time, took more money, I still would do it all again. I just would actually plan, especially in those first couple of years. You're constantly cleaning, constantly decorating, constantly buying things for the business, constantly navigating software choices and spending money on things and trying to figure out what to spend money on. And I would leave more room for that than I actually did at the time when I did.
Yeah, I can understand that one. Can you walk us through a typical day at My Body Couture? What's some of the unique aspects of managing a wellness studio compared to an online business, for example?
Yeah, in an ideal world, I would come in and all of my clients would be booked back to back and I have a billable hour chunk. And that's totally not how people's lives work. Especially in kind of the services that I'm offering, people love to come in early in the morning, during their lunch hour, and then after work. And so that splits my day into 3 chunks. I live like a 15-minute walk from my office or my commercial space. So sometimes in a given day to partly get my exercise in, I walk back and forth a few times. I still tend to do it. I do actually offer digital services and I tend to do those from home. I don't actually know why, but I do. So navigating people's schedules is actually a huge challenge because it changes from day to day and week to week. So when we talk about typical days, I tend to offer somewhere between 15 and 20 spaces for clients to come in, get personal services. And then I also have online sales of products, and those actually vary quite a lot as well. So sometimes I have lots and lots and lots of orders, and then there'll be other times when almost nothing kind of comes in. So different trips to the post office, managing inventory. Obviously, anybody who sells products will be familiar with this one, but there are sometimes customer complaints or grumpy people or inquiries or just different aspects of human management, and then trying to make sure that my online store is always looking fresh enough, watching my numbers, kind of looking at the overall budget. I did already mention this, but just making sure everything is clean and tidy. And that sometimes feels like a full-time job. Seasonal inventory management, and then just lots and lots of sales and marketing and trying to create connections, trying to find great sales and marketing tools and techniques that also don't take forever. And so it's a little bit of a dance where every day looks a little bit different, but basically there is some element of product sales and marketing, service provision, and just keeping the whole thing afloat in terms of, generalized business management, cleaning the windows, mopping the floors, things like that, to make sure that it's prepared for all of the activity and action that are happening in there.
So it's fair to say there is a lot of what you do on a day-to-day basis that actually is not your core work.
Oh, totally. Yes. That is true. And I think, again, just having had the experience as many people in my kind of area of business did during 2020 and 21, when everything was digital, there were certain ways in which that was actually a lot simpler because I could stay at home, open the computer, do the thing, close the computer, clean my kitchen, etc. I didn't need to be as concerned with all of the dance. So it comes back to that first conversation of spaces take time, they take money, they take tending, they take nurturing, they take management, but it keeps everything interesting.
Oh yeah, absolutely. So how do you ensure that you're always giving excellent customer service?
Well, one thing that I have learned over time, because all of my product sales, well, I shouldn't say all, a large number of my product sales come in through digital methods. So people are on the internet looking for solutions. They find what I'm selling, they order it, and then it's a mail order product as opposed to them coming in to purchase it. It's not a high percentage, but there are occasionally people that will email different concerns everything ranging from I didn't get it to it's not what I expected or something's missing in the box. 100% of the time, I pick up the phone to resolve the concern or complaint. And I learned to do that because most of the time, people are in a heightened state when they send over a text or an email to make that complaint. Quite often, they've built a story in their head, and quite often that links to this is a big company, this is corporate greed, this is somebody taking advantage of me, especially because it's an internet sale, that they've been scammed or that, you know, somebody's gotten one over them. And so the tone and the tension that's available there is really ripe for then interpreting anything I say in any tone, any kind of series of words as negative. I learned a long time ago, just cut that off at the pass, pick up the phone, call a customer. And what I've really noticed with that is we come to very smooth resolutions. I'm able to offer them a solution. There's often a huge level of surprise and delight because it's so rare to hear from a human being. And then 99% of those just get immediately resolved very smoothly, especially when you're mailing things. It doesn't always go smoothly. We have lost packages. I've had more than one customer who calls me and said, you know, I don't have my product, and they haven't actually checked their mailbox. So instead of actually engaging in a lot of dialogue back and forth, we're able to just quickly get to the root of the issue, and I can walk them through, here's the pathway for what happens next and how we resolve it. So that's what I do on the product and customer service. And because they're actually in person in my space, it's a lot easier because usually if there are issues, we just are having dialogue and we can work it out immediately.
I love the fact that it's such a personal approach. Because like you say, it's quite a rare thing to actually have a person that's there. Can you share a memorable customer experience that stands out?
Yes, I actually will give one that I, to this day, think is very funny. So I already kind of alluded to this. I had a customer who contacted me and said, you know, I've been waiting for my product. Do you think it's fair that I've been kept waiting all of this time? And then, as I shared already, I contacted them by phone and very quickly realized that this person had not actually checked their mailbox. And she was just so lovely. And she was a little bit embarrassed, but she was like, I'm on my cell phone, so why don't we take a walk to the mailbox right now together? And so, you know, I stayed on the line while she went to her mailbox. She opened it up. There was the package. And she was just like, oh, this is just wonderful. I apologize. Thank you so much. It's so nice to hear from someone. And it was lovely and charming and rather cute. And again, it took a few minutes of my time. That one stands out as that's why I make that phone call, because it was easy to just take somebody who was upset and kind of felt like she was really worried that she'd either been scammed or that this was unfair to her. And then we turned the situation around in a lovely, connected way.
Yeah, I think that's great. It shows that you have broad shoulders to be able to do that, because I think there's a risk that actually you could end up with something quite horrible on the end of the line. And as an introvert, you know, making phone calls is actually quite scary because you don't know what you're going to get at the other end of the line.
You really don't. Especially, I mean, I always think when I look at these emails, you're right. This is not a happy person. They're not emailing to say, oh, wow, received this product and it's changed my life. I get lots of those as well, but you can read into it that you're dealing with somebody who's not super excited or happy or delighted. So you're right. You don't actually know. I think for me, I just give people the benefit of the doubt, or I put myself in that situation myself. And for me, part of it is actually that art of helping people really understand they're dealing with a small business. It is not a giant company. I am actually in a location. I'm a real human. It is a small business. And sometimes I make mistakes, right? And what I found is really people connect to that. They have compassion for that if it is on my end. So that for me is actually a delight to be able to share that with people.
You said earlier in the chat about there's parts of your day that's around marketing and marketing strategies and finding marketing that works, that doesn't take forever, that's not really expensive. So what strategies have you found most effective for attracting clients?
Really, I've always been really successful with word of mouth, both on product sales and customer service delivery. Sorry, that came out a little bit choppy because my brain is running a little bit ahead of my mouth. So the challenge is great, word of mouth, perfect. Like, how do we actually cultivate that? And I find that there are always people that champion something. So it doesn't matter whether it's a car or a camera or a fitness modality or me as a human. There are always champions to somebody who discovers this person, place, or thing and just thinks it's the cat's meow, it's the best thing ever. And so really cultivating those relationships and putting myself in front of people to develop that awareness that I exist. Some people don't care. Some people don't resonate with it. But I always have been really successful at, and like every marketing technique, you're going to get 1% of people who just become rabid fans, who connect with it, who want to work together. And so offering myself in different ways. So it's writing, I do podcasts, I do send cold emails to people that are in adjacent industries or who might have an interest in a presentation or the product line. And, sometimes it's really frustrating. Sometimes you get something happening and you're like, yeah. I think that marketing is not ever easy because our result rate is sometimes a bit random, but it's just over the years, I've tried different tools and I've tried different methodologies. Example, I used to do live in-person demonstrations, and I found that while I could always fill the room with people willing to take a free demonstration, the conversion to a paid client or somebody who bought a product was zero consistently. So then I have found that something more successful is talking about the theory of what I do, and either that resonates with somebody or it doesn't. So not giving them actual samples, but sharing kind of more education and information, that has tended to be more successful for me. I like it also. So it kind of works. But I think really sales and marketing for me anyways, there's never been kind of like tried true formula. It's let's try this for 3 months, see if it actually makes a difference. If yes, continue. If no, discontinue. But maybe also revisit that idea. Like there was things last year and the year before that I dredged out of the archive and tried them again because times change, I change, the market changes. In this case, the results were almost the same, but I just gave it a little go to see. But I think for me, the biggest thing is just being willing to experiment and then stick with it and know that there's going to be bad weeks and bad months, but just going with what continues to work.
So it's interesting that you say that you have this online side to your business as well. So you've got the physical in person, you've got the online bit. Have you utilized social media and other online tools to complement your physical presence as well?
That's a really good question. So that actually is another area where I used to have a lot of success and I recently just really haven't. So I find that the online, especially social media, it's a really noisy space, really noisy. And so I spent 3 months this year from January to March really investing in that with a lot of frustration. One of my personal weaknesses, I don't really love video and I don't really love creating reels. And I really don't love walking around having to think about every second of my life being a video moment. So I actually, and it's funny because I am a photographer, so I do think that way, but I don't think video. And I've had lots and lots of kind of examples given to me, like, oh, you could video yourself opening the door, showing yourself coming into your studio space. And it just doesn't come naturally to me. And I don't like any part of it. And so I think that I'm actually really set up for actually failure in a lot of ways in that space because it's so video heavy now. And I just have no instinct for where to put the camera, what to film, what to cut together, how to make it snappy and poppy. I'm just not that person. So I worked with a couple digital strategists earlier in the year about what social media could look like. And one of them just literally said to me, you're probably not going to succeed given the limitations of what you do, because I'm not going to make a reel. So how do we make this work? So at this point, I literally create podcasts, write articles, and just post sporadically things that come to me. My success rate and my business looks the same, whether I invest hours a day in it or whether I don't. So I'm just working on the social media to make me happy train, as opposed to thinking that for me, it was a difficult thing to walk away from because so many people are like, but you never know. But my results were showing that I did know. it just wasn't happening through that channel. So I moved more again to how do I cultivate connection with people? How do I create relationship with people? And doing it almost the old fashioned way. Let's set up a meeting. Let's talk about what we could do. Let's share conversation, doing things slightly longer form. And that actually does work for me.
And because your business has been around a little while now, you've seen how things have changed and how market conditions have changed and consumer behaviours changed. How have you adapted your business with regards to this?
That's the best question ever. In some ways, I have dug into more of those older techniques. I often think to myself, well, all of this existed, whether it's a storefront or customer service, etc., in the 1990s, the 1980s, the 1970s. We did all of this before the internet. And so as things have evolved and gotten faster and louder and more snappy and more poppy, let's give everybody tips and let's do it faster and more. I've actually gone the other way purposefully, where it's like slow it down, offer longer form content, don't try to make it snappy and poppy. And I find that customers are increasingly responding to that because I think there's this certain level of fatigue with everything is instant gratification, then we're on to the next thing. And then where's the customer service? Where's that human connection? Where is the caring about the exchange? And I think when you exchange with a business, there certainly can be kind of things that you don't care about. But if I go to a high-end bakery, I want to feel that loving care that was put into the food. I want excellence of the product. I'm not there for fast food, or I would be at a fast food place, right? So I think really leaning into that idea of this is a real human connection. It's old school small business. A lot of the tools and ways that I'm going about it at this point are really pre-internet, but that's just the more we speed up and get faster, the more people are actually responding to that, which is the opposite of what a lot of people will tell you. So even on those internet sales, staunchly refuse to kind of be like, okay, here's all the information for free and you'll pay for it if that quote unquote adds value. I just kind of trust. It's something I have often said is if we see a Pepsi commercial on television, we don't see that drive to sales at the end where, oh, if you like this, you can buy one for 99 cents. As a consumer what to do. How to action that. And so that's what I've been doing is just kind of leaning into, I trust the consumer. I'm not going to be for everybody. This product is not going to be for everybody. But when they do arrive at that decision, there's going to be that kind of connection and that feeling almost of, oh, I recognize this from somewhere in the past.
I like the fact that you've really cut your own groove with it.
Yeah.
Which I think is a great way of doing it, because there's so much that we get taught that when we start to do it, it doesn't work for us. It can be difficult then to say, no, actually, I'm going to do my own thing with this and I'm going to find my own way. And it's different from what you're being taught.
Oh, totally. And I think it's a little scary because whenever I've consulted with experts and consultants and they are just like, this is not a good idea. I'm like, well, the other way feels bad to me. I don't want to do it. I'm a one-person business operation. The idea that every social media post I put up follows a quote unquote strategy to make my quote unquote look good. I'm just like, that's gross. That's not real. That's what a big company does because they have staffing and they have resources and they aren't a human being, whereas I am, right? And so I have, for better or for worse, I've just kind of like, sometimes it takes me a while to like emotionally process the fact that I'm going to ignore this advice, but I have just staunchly continued to ignore the advice. And this isn't why, but I actually have a business degree, and a lot of the things that consultants and coaches have told me over the years, that's not stuff that we actually do in a 4-year business degree, right? So I'm like, there has to be some truth to, end of the day, most people's money has meaning and time and investment for them, and they want to purchase things with that have meaning and time and investment. They're not looking for transaction or garbage or to feel bad about that purchase. So what can I do to facilitate that best experience for them?
So we've looked at a lot of the good stuff.
Yes.
But I think we kind of have to have a little look at the other side of it as well. What's been some of the most difficult moments in your journey and what did you learn from them?
I think every business owner will tell you this, but there's been times when I've invested in products or services or concepts that just don't work. And so it's hard to even speak about it, but there's things where I'm like, yeah, I sunk 30 or 50 or whatever, tens of thousands of dollars into this thing that just didn't work. And it might not have worked because consumers didn't want it. It might not have worked because I didn't have that passion to sell it or to care. It might not have worked because of timing. I had a digital program that in 2018 and 2019 I made a huge investment in, and then we all know what happened in March of 2020, and the timing, like I was just finishing editing that piece, and then all of a sudden it was like that investment was super irrelevant. No one wanted to purchase it. Can't speak for every business owner, but when I place a product order, it is tens of thousands of dollars minimum that you're putting into it. So I don't get to go and be like, oh, I'll take 5 of this one item. You have to order like half a cargo ship worth of stuff. And so I've missed the mark on some of that stuff. And then you have to make a decision, like, do you lower your price? Do you do like some kind of discounting program? Do you avoid that? Do you just hang on to it? Do you start to market around it? So that stuff is not always easy, because I find, at least on the service side, it's an ocean where it's like, okay, I put that offer out there, no one purchased it. Oh, well, we move on, right? It's just you wasted some time. Products are harder because they're actual money. So at this point, I try to only stock products that I would personally use. Sometimes that has actually meant that I absorb the inventory personally and I have deodorant or whatever for like the rest of my life. But I do find that helps keep it at least very minimally kind of aligned with whatever I'm selling. I do have personal experience with, personal passion towards, and I'm not kind of just selling it because I have to. I am contractually obligated to sell all of one product line. So there are a few things where I'll just keep the inventory low. But then there's sometimes surprises that happen within that. But I think that the financial stress of trying to manage inventory and timing and your product selection, especially as things kind of shift, it's really challenging and it can take a lot of time. And sometimes I import products that has its own like craziness, working with the shipping companies and the brokers and the this and the that. Just to give an example, there was a huge shipment that I had been told was going to land on my floor last October, like October of 2023. I ordered it in July. So it was supposed to get manufactured, shipped to Canada, be on my floor in October. It got to my floor in February. So trying to fill that gap and order products to fill the gap, or to be, oh God, I have one more. I really hope that no one orders this week. And then I actually took a personal vacation in January. Then I started getting these emails from the customs broker saying, in 48 hours, you're going to start to get charged fees for holding this product. I'm like, whoa, like, where did this even come from? When did it land in Canada? When is it actually getting delivered to my space? And as it turned out, it wasn't even close. They hadn't even cleared it through customs. I know, but I was like blowing a gasket on my vacation because I'm like, there's no way I could have predicted that timing when it was supposed to be there like months ago. So it's just kind of this dance that's constantly happening. And you have to always kind of remain calm and make those decisions of whether I have another place I can order little bits and buckets to kind of fill. It's really expensive to do that. So do I want to take a loss or break even on those products? Or do I want to just mark it all as out of stock? I don't know. So I think that I love selling products, but that for me is kind of where some of those really peak stress moments come in, because we just go to stores as consumers and they have stuff on the shelf. We don't think about how it got there, or all the paperwork, or where it came from, or who manufactured it, or any of that timing, or who's carrying what loans or payments, or how they paid for it. We just don't think about any of that stuff. And it's way more tricky than I actually thought it was going to be.
There's so much more to business that we never ever consider.
Yeah.
At the point of going, I've got a great idea. I'd like to start a business.
Right? To me, being a business owner or being an entrepreneur is, you have to just have a certain kind of personality almost to do it. Otherwise, it's a fool's errand, to be honest. The money that other people have purchased houses with is sitting on my floor in my studio space in inventory, right?
So looking to the future,
Yes.
are you considering expanding or diversifying or other significant changes?
So that actually also is a great question. So I have a teenager who was my business and my child had kind of grown up together. So he's more on the fresh end of the teenhood, which kind of changes things. So for me, just some of those personal capacities are starting to look a little bit different. And so I don't know that I'm at the place yet of being like, ooh, here's some major changes, but I definitely can see more room for product and service expansion. Some of the things that I've set aside in the past, kind of revisiting some of those, like developing teacher trainings and expanding the product offering, stuff like that. So I am at the place where I've written them down on a piece of paper and working through some of those. But I'm not at the place where I'm like, oh, yes, within 5 years, X or Y is going to happen.
A big part of this podcast is about encouraging people to start businesses in a way that is self-sufficient or is knowledgeable or has a foundation that has a structure to it. What advice would you give to someone thinking about starting their own wellness or fitness studio, other than don't do it?
Actually, I wouldn't say don't do it. But what I would say is open small, because you can always get more square footage. You can always franchise. You can always expand in lots of ways. To be honest, I remember opening my business, and again, I took some heat and criticism saying like, this is not scalable. It's not this, it's not that. But conversely, we got into 2020 and 2021, and actually even the long tail of that recovery. And what I can tell you is I could always provide the services and sell the products by myself to pay for that space and to keep it moving. Had I not been in that position, I would not be in business today, because that recovery has taken a lot longer. So I think that often we either internally or externally, we get really pressured to have these like huge ambitions. We're all about like, what does it look like later? And how do we scale? And how many zeros and figures can we make? I think I did something that I would do again, which is about 631 square foot office, saved my business, and it has saved my own personal sanity, because life is hard in a certain time of life, especially if you have children or other obligations, where there was times when the dial on that was really high, and I could always still kind of keep that self-contained. So I know that I could open a second location, or I could franchise, or I could do this, or I could do that. Whereas I can't, once you sign a commercial lease, that's your lease. And at least here, you cannot get out of it. Your landlord will sue you and come after that money, even if, you know, mine is through a company, but there's a personal guarantee. They make you do it. So I think a lot of people are not really aware of that. They think it's like an apartment where you kind of just change your mind, or you have a hard time and you give notice. And that's not the way it is here. So it's always better to start smaller, work out the kinks, figure out what your actual passions and ambitions are, make those mistakes, even if they're expensive ones, and then scale up, expand, blow out a wall, take a second space, build something across the street, add a second city, whatever it is, than it is to take on too much. Because time and time again, I've just seen business after business go out of business because they take on too much.
What's the number one thing you wished you knew when you started My Body Couture that you know now?
That it is actually not just a business and numbers and spreadsheets and theories and business plans, but it's actually a whole mental and physical integrated component with my own life. So I think, again, we often kind of have that idea where corporations are corporations and they're in a bucket. That probably is true for large companies. They take on their own persona. There's a separation between the humans and the company. When you're a small business like myself, that's a very porous boundary. And so whatever my personal limitations are in terms of my emotional space, my personal capacities, whether that's time or money, that directly impacts the business and vice versa. So just knowing how much, to be honest, how much personal work you're going to have to do, I wish I'd known that. And it wouldn't have changed anything. But I find at times that I've had to do more personal work than business work, because your emotions will get in the way, whether it's fears or ambition, you know, just fatigue or whatever. But just knowing that there's skeletons in that basement and they're going to make themselves known as soon as you open a business.
I think that's the best way I've ever heard it put about this porous boundary between the different elements, because it is so true.
Yeah, and that's not something I learned about in business school. That was the old hard knocks school instead. Yeah, pretty much.
So where can listeners follow you and find My Body Couture?
Perfect. So it is 3 words. It's my, M-Y. Second word is B-O-D-Y. Third word is couture, C-O-U-T-U-R-E. So I'm@the.com. I'm also, if I am active or posting or have an account on a social media site other than LinkedIn, you will find me at My Body Couture. So you can follow, you can observe, you can open up the pages. I do like when people just reach out to me. So if you made it to the end of the podcast, find my page, send me a little note, say, hey, I listened to your podcast, and then say a thing. And I love that the most. So I always welcome personal feedback or DMs.
Brilliant. Thank you so much for spending the time having a conversation today. I really appreciate you.
Thank you. This was really fun.